The mystery of Atlantis has captivated the minds of thinkers, explorers, and dreamers for millennia. The very mention of the name evokes images of a lost, fabled civilization, a shining city of wonders swallowed by the sea, its secrets hidden in the depths of time. The concept of Atlantis first entered the historical record through the works of the ancient Greek philosopher Plato. But what exactly was Atlantis? And why has it continued to intrigue humanity for so long? Was it a metaphor for something deeper, or did it once exist as a physical place? This is the enigma that has left historians, archaeologists, and adventurers with more questions than answers. Plato first introduced Atlantis in two of his dialogues, Timaeus and Critias, written around 360 BCE. In these writings, he describes a powerful, technologically advanced civilization that existed about 9,000 years before his time, beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which is now known as the Strait of Gibraltar. The city of Atlantis, according to Plato, was vast and prosperous, an empire that controlled large parts of the known world. It was a civilization marked by advanced engineering, a flourishing economy, and a society that lived in harmony with its environment. Atlantis was said to be located on an island of unimaginable size, with grand palaces, temples, and lush gardens. What makes Atlantis particularly fascinating, though, is not just its magnificence, but its sudden and dramatic fall from grace. Plato's account suggests that the gods, angered by the Atlanteans' growing hubris, decided to punish them. Atlantis, once a paradise, was struck by a series of natural disasters, including earthquakes and floods. In a single cataclysmic event, the entire island sank beneath the waves, vanishing without a trace. Plato's descriptions are vivid, painting a picture of society so advanced that its loss would have been both tragic and monumental. The image of a once great city swallowed by the sea, disappearing from history, has lingered in the human imagination ever since. For centuries, scholars have debated the meaning of Plato's account. Was Atlantis a real place? Or was it merely an allegory, a cautionary tale designed to warn against the dangers of pride and moral decay? Plato himself seemed to suggest that the story of Atlantis was a true history, handed down from ancient Egyptian priest to Solon, the Athenian lawgiver, who passed it to Plato's ancestors. However, Plato never claimed to have visited Atlantis himself, and there are no other contemporary records to support his account. This has led some to speculate that Plato's story was purely fictional, perhaps inspired by older myths and legends. Nevertheless, Plato's descriptions of Atlantis were so vivid that they have sparked countless theories and explorations over the centuries. Some believe that Plato's writings were meant to convey a moral lesson, using the fall of Atlantis as a metaphor for the dangers of unchecked ambition and imbalance between civilization and nature. The story could be seen as a reflection of the ancient Greek worldview, which held that the gods were directly involved in the affairs of humans, and that those who overstepped their bounds would inevitably face divine retribution. However, others have interpreted Plato's account as a historical record, one that describes a real civilization that existed long before ancient Greece. According to this view, Atlantis was a real place, and its destruction was caused by a natural disaster so catastrophic that it left no trace in the historical record. This interpretation is supported by the belief that Plato's descriptions of Atlantis bear striking similarities to real-world ancient civilizations, particularly the Minoan civilization of Crete, which was known for its advanced culture and sudden collapse. Could Atlantis have been based on a real place, lost to history through the ravages of time and disaster? If so, where might it have been located? The search for Atlantis has been a perennial quest for explorers, archaeologists, and dreamers throughout history. From the Mediterranean to the Caribbean to Antarctica, countless theories have been proposed about the possible location of the lost city. Some have suggested that Atlantis was located on the island of Santorini in the Aegean Sea, which was home to the Minoan civilization. In around 1600 BCE, Santorini was struck by a massive volcanic eruption that decimated the island and triggered a series of tsunamis, potentially providing a model for Plato's description of the island's destruction. Others have pointed to the Azores, the Canary Islands, and even the coast of Antarctica as potential sites for Atlantis, each theory proposing a different geographical location, but all united by the belief that the city once existed. Despite the many theories, there is no definitive evidence that Atlantis was a real place. No ruins have been discovered, no artifacts have been uncovered, and no ancient records have been found to corroborate Plato's story. Some scholars argue that Atlantis is purely mythological, a creation of Plato's imagination, while others maintain that the city may have existed, but has long since been lost to the ravages of time. It is possible that Atlantis was a composite of various real-world places, myths, and legends woven together to create a powerful narrative that would endure for centuries. The fact that the story of Atlantis continues to captivate people, despite the lack of tangible evidence, is a testament to the power of myth and the human imagination. Over the centuries, the idea of Atlantis has been adapted, reinterpreted, and woven into the fabric of numerous cultures and belief systems. Some view Atlantis as a symbol of lost wisdom, a repository of ancient knowledge that has been hidden from humanity. Others see it as a warning, a tale of hubris and overreach that serves as a cautionary lesson for future generations. For many, Atlantis represents a utopian ideal, a perfect civilization that, if rediscovered, could offer insights into how to live in harmony with nature and one another. The allure of Atlantis is multifaceted, shaped by our desire for discovery, our fear of the unknown, and our longing for a lost paradise. As the centuries have passed, the myth of Atlantis has only grown stronger, with new interpretations, theories, and discoveries keeping alive in the popular imagination. Today, Atlantis is a staple of modern storytelling, appearing in books, movies, and television shows. From Journey to the Center of the Earth to Disney's Atlantis, The Lost Empire, the myth of Atlantis has been reimagined and reinterpreted in countless ways. For some, the story of Atlantis represents the ultimate mystery, a riddle that can never be solved, while for others, it is a metaphor for the fragility of civilization and the dangers of unchecked ambition. But what if the truth of Atlantis is not something that can be discovered through archaeological digs or ancient texts? What if the story of Atlantis is not about a physical city at all, but about something deeper, the human desire for perfection, for knowledge, and for meaning? Perhaps Atlantis exists not as a literal place, but as a symbol, a story that endures because it speaks to something fundamental in the human condition. The city that vanishes beneath the sea might not be lost to history, but rather a part of us, an ideal, a dream, or a warning that lives on the stories we tell and the myths we believe. As the centuries continue past, the story of Atlantis remains as captivating as ever. It continues to draw us in, offering a tantalizing glimpse into a world that might have been, and challenging us to ponder the mysteries of the past. Whether Atlantis was a real city or simply a myth, its story endures, reminding us that sometimes the greatest mysteries are not the ones we can solve, but the ones that leave us questioning, wondering, and dreaming. The story of Atlantis begins with the ancient Greek philosopher Plato, who introduced a fabled city in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias. It is here that we first encounter the narrative of a powerful civilization, one that lived in harmony with nature, but ultimately fell victim to its own hubris. Plato's depiction of Atlantis is both vivid and tantalizing, yet has left many wondering whether the story is a mere allegory or the account of a true historical event. For centuries, scholars and historians have debated this question, and the mystery surrounding Atlantis has only deepened with time. In Timaeus, Plato introduces the story of Atlantis through the character of Critias, who recount an ancient tale passed down through generations. According to Critias, the story of Atlantis was told to his ancestor, Solon, an Athenian statesman, by Egyptian priests during a visit to Egypt. These priests supposedly shared with Solon the knowledge of a great civilization that existed long before recorded history, an island paradise that, at the height of its power, was larger and more prosperous than any known land. The island of Atlantis, they claimed, was located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, a term that refers to what is now known as the Strait of Gibraltar. This strategic location, Plato suggests, placed Atlantis at the center of the known world, making it a dominant power in ancient times. Plato's Atlantis was not just an ordinary civilization. It was a utopia, a society marked by abundance and harmony. The people of Atlantis lived in great wealth, enjoying advanced technologies and a flourishing culture. The island itself was described as a marvel, with towering mountains, lush plains, and a sophisticated network of canals that divided the island into concentric rings of land and water. At the heart of the island stood a magnificent palace dedicated to Poseidon, the god of the sea, who was said to be the patron deity of Atlantis. In Plato's account, the Atlanteans were not only wealthy in material terms, but also in spirit, with a highly developed sense of justice and harmony that governed their lives. This perfect balance, however, would not last forever. According to Plato, as time passed, the people of Atlantis began to lose sight of the virtues that had made their society great. The initial harmony between nature and civilization began to unravel as the Atlanteans became increasingly proud and indulgent. They grew intoxicated by their own power and success, believing that their wealth and technological prowess placed them above the gods. In this way, Atlantis became a society that, in Plato's eyes, exemplified the dangers of unchecked ambition. Over time, the Atlanteans' pride and moral decay angered the gods, who decided to punish them for their hubris. It was then that the great catastrophe occurred. Atlantis was struck by a series of natural disasters, including earthquakes and floods. The island, which had once been a paradise, was swallowed by the sea, vanishing without a trace in a single day and night. The destruction of Atlantis is a central theme in Plato's account, and it is here that the story takes on a more tragic tone. The loss of such a magnificent civilization serves as a powerful lesson about the fragility of human achievement and the consequences of pride. Plato's narrative is rich in symbolism, with the fall of Atlantis representing the inevitable decline of any society that loses its moral compass. The gods, in Plato's view, were not simply punishing the Atlanteans for their greed and arrogance, but were also reminding humanity of the need for humility, balance, and respect for the natural world. The idea that a great civilization could be obliterated in an instant, swallowed by the very sea that had once provided it with prosperity, is a sobering reminder of the impermanence of human endeavors. For centuries, Plato's account of Atlantis was largely regarded as a myth, a cautionary tale designed to warn future generations about the dangers of moral decay and excess. However, the vividness of Plato's description has led many to wonder whether Atlantis might have been more than just a fictional story. Was there some kernel of truth in Plato's narrative? Could Atlantis have been a real place, a civilization that existed long before the time of ancient Greece and was lost to history due to a catastrophic event? This question has fueled speculation and intrigue for generations, with countless theories emerging about the possible existence of Atlantis and its location. One of the central reasons why the story of Atlantis has remained so compelling is the detail with which Plato described the city. The island was said to be made up of concentric rings of land and water, with canals running through the center. At the heart of the island stood a grand temple dedicated to Poseidon, surrounded by beautiful gardens and impressive architecture. The wealth of the Atlanteans was not only in their material riches, but also in their cultural and intellectual achievements. Plato's depiction of Atlantis as a highly advanced civilization with a rich spiritual life has contributed to the enduring fascination with the idea that Atlantis might have been a real place. The idea that such a society could have existed and then vanished is both tantalizing and tragic, and has inspired countless efforts to uncover the truth behind the myth. One of the key elements of the Atlantis story is the concept of its sudden disappearance. According to Plato, Atlantis was destroyed in a single cataclysmic event, a natural disaster so powerful that it wiped the island from existence. The story of Atlantis' fall is strikingly similar to other ancient myths of lost civilizations, such as the biblical story of Noah's flood or the Sumerian tale of the flood that destroyed the city of Eridu. In each of these stories, a great civilization is destroyed by a divine force, often as a punishment for the people's sins. Plato's account of Atlantis fits within this broader pattern of ancient myths that warn of the dangers of pride, greed, and moral corruption. The destruction of Atlantis, in this sense, becomes a metaphor for the inevitable downfall of any civilization that fails to maintain its moral and spiritual integrity. Despite the lack of concrete evidence to support Plato's story, the idea of Atlantis has persisted in popular imagination, inspiring generations of explorers, archaeologists, and theorists to search for the lost city. From the Mediterranean to the Caribbean, and even Antarctica, many locations have been proposed as the possible site of Atlantis. Some believe that Plato's description of the island's location beyond the Pillars of Hercules points to the Mediterranean, while others suggest that the island could have been located in the Caribbean or even in the waters surrounding Antarctica. Each theory presents its own set of challenges and mysteries, and the quest for Atlantis has become a search for a lost world that may never be found. But while the search for Atlantis has captured the imagination of countless adventurers and scholars, it is also important to consider the possibility that the city may not have existed at all. Plato's account of Atlantis may have been a work of fiction, created to serve as a moral allegory for his audience. In this view, Atlantis would not be a real place, but rather a cautionary tale designed to teach lessons about the dangers of pride, the consequences of moral decay, and the fragility of human civilization. In many ways, Atlantis may be less about a physical city and more about the timeless themes that have always been central to human existence: the desire for greatness, the pursuit of knowledge, and the inevitable fall that follows when we lose our way. The fact that Plato's story has endured for over 2,000 years is a testament to the power of myths and legends. Atlantis, whether real or fictional, has become an enduring symbol of lost civilizations and the mysteries of the past. The search for Atlantis may never yield definitive answers, but the story of the city that vanished beneath the waves continues to inspire, provoke, and captivate those who seek to understand the world's ancient mysteries. It is a story that speaks to the human longing for discovery, for understanding, and for a connection to something greater than ourselves. The tale of Atlantis is more than just a story about a lost city. It is a reflection of humanity's eternal fascination with the past, with the idea of utopia, and with the fragility of civilization. Whether Atlantis was a real place or simply a myth, its legacy endures, offering us a glimpse into the collective imagination of the ancient world and a timeless reminder of the dangers of excess and pride. As we continue to explore the mysteries of our own civilization, the story of Atlantis remains a powerful symbol of both our aspirations and our vulnerabilities, a reminder that, no matter how great a society may become, it is always susceptible to the forces of nature, time, and our own shortcomings. The question of whether Atlantis was a real place or a work of fiction has been at the heart of debates for centuries. For many, Plato's account in Timaeus and Critias is a historical document describing the rise and fall of a great civilization. For others, it is a cautionary tale, a philosophical allegory meant to illustrate the dangers of hubris and the inevitable consequences of moral decline. Yet, despite the lack of definitive evidence, the story of Atlantis has continued to resonate with generations of thinkers, explorers, and dreamers, keeping the question of its existence alive. Is Atlantis simply a myth, or could there be some kernel of truth buried within Plato's words? One of the central arguments against the historical reality of Atlantis is that there is no corroborating evidence to support Plato's descriptions. Despite centuries of exploration, archaeology, and research, no physical remains of city or island that match the details Plato provided have ever been found. This absence of tangible evidence has led many scholars to conclude that Atlantis is a purely fictional creation, a story invented by Plato for philosophical and moral purposes. Plato himself, after all, never claimed to have visited Atlantis or provided any direct evidence of its existence. The story was passed down to him by the Egyptian priests through the Athenian lawgiver Solon, who had visited Egypt some 1,000 years before Plato's time. This indirect transmission of the story, along with a lack of corroboration from other ancient sources, has led some to question the authenticity of Plato's account. Furthermore, Plato's descriptions of Atlantis are filled with fantastical elements that seem more in line with myth than history. He speaks of an island larger than Libya and Asia combined, a civilization with advanced technologies and architecture, and a society that enjoyed immense wealth and power. Such grandeur, combined with the rapid destruction of the island in a single cataclysmic event, can seem more like the stuff of legend than the records of a real civilization. It is possible that Plato's account was never meant to be taken literally, but was rather a cautionary tale, a narrative created to teach lessons about the dangers of moral corruption, the fall of empires, and the consequences of overreaching ambition. In this view, Atlantis would be less about a physical place and more about an abstract concept, a symbolic representation of the rise and fall of civilizations throughout history. But despite these doubts, there are those who believe that Plato's Atlantis is based on something real, that the great island civilization he described did, in fact, exist and was lost to history. For these proponents, the key to understanding the reality of Atlantis lies in interpreting Plato's story not as an allegory, but as a historical account of a real civilization that lived long before the Greeks. If we accept this premise, the question becomes, where could Atlantis have been located, and what happened to it? One of the most compelling theories is that Atlantis was based on the Minoan civilization of Crete. The Minoans were an advanced society that flourished in the Aegean Sea around 1500 BCE, and their culture shares several striking similarities with Plato's descriptions of Atlantis. Like Atlantis, the Minoans were known for their advanced technology, particularly in the areas of architecture, plumbing, and art. The Minoan capital, Knossos, was a sprawling palace complex with intricate frescoes, large storage rooms, and an elaborate system of drainage and water supply. The Minoans were also a powerful maritime civilization, with trade networks that spanned the Mediterranean. Plato describes the Atlanteans as a seafaring people who controlled vast territories, and the Minoans fit this description well. However, the most significant connection between the Minoans and Atlantis comes from the cataclysmic event that brought the Minoan civilization to an end. Around 1600 BCE, the island of Thera, now known as Santorini, was struck by a massive volcanic eruption, one of the largest in recorded history. The eruption devastated the island, triggering a series of tsunamis and widespread destruction. The Minoan cities on Crete, though not directly destroyed by the eruption, were severely impacted by the resulting tsunamis and the volcanic ash that blanketed the region. The eruption marked the beginning of the decline of the Minoan civilization, and some scholars have suggested that Plato's description of Atlantis sinking into the sea may have been inspired by the real-life catastrophe that struck Thera. The theory that Atlantis was based on the Minoan civilization is further supported by archaeological evidence. In the early 20th century, the discovery of the ancient Minoan city of Akrotiri on the island of Thera revealed a well-preserved civilization that had been destroyed by the eruption. The ruins of Akrotiri are remarkably advanced, with multi-story buildings, sophisticated plumbing, and detailed frescoes. The city's sudden and violent destruction mirrors the fate of Atlantis, as described by Plato, and some scholars believe that the memory of the Minoan disaster could have been passed down through generations, eventually becoming the story of Atlantis. But while the Minoan theory is compelling, it is by no means the only explanation for the story of Atlantis. Over the centuries, many other locations have been proposed as the site of the lost city, ranging from the Mediterranean to the Caribbean to Antarctica. Some theorists believe that Atlantis was located in the Azores, a group of islands off the coast of Portugal, while others have suggested that the Caribbean islands, particularly the Bahamas or Cuba, might be the remnants of the lost civilization. The idea that Atlantis was located in the Caribbean has gained popularity in recent years, with proponents pointing to underwater structures off the coast of Cuba and the Bahamas that some believe could be the remains of an ancient city. However, these claims have been met with skepticism, and there is little solid evidence to support the idea that Atlantis ever existed in the Caribbean. Perhaps the most unusual theory, however, is that Atlantis was located in Antarctica. This theory, which has gained traction in some fringe circles, posits that Atlantis was once situated in a much warmer climate and was home to a highly advanced civilization. According to proponents of this theory, the gradual shift in the Earth's axis caused Antarctica to become a frozen wasteland, and the remains of Atlantis were buried beneath the ice. While this theory is highly speculative and lacks substantial evidence, it highlights the enduring mystery of Atlantis and the lengths to which people will go to explain its existence. Despite the variety of theories, the fact remains that no definitive evidence has been found to prove the existence of Atlantis. While some archaeological discoveries, such as the ruins of Akrotiri, have provided tantalizing clues, they have not confirmed Plato's account. The search for Atlantis has become a kind of modern-day treasure hunt, with explorers and theorists continuing to propose new locations and ideas, but the true nature of the lost city remains elusive. What is it about the story of Atlantis that has kept people searching for so long? Why does the myth continue to captivate our imaginations, even in the face of overwhelming skepticism? Perhaps the answer lies in the universal themes embedded in the story. Atlantis represents the ultimate lost civilization, a society that was both advanced and flawed, a paradise that was destroyed by the very forces that had once made it great. The story of Atlantis speaks to the fragility of human achievement, to the idea that even the greatest civilizations can fall, consumed by their own pride and excess. In this sense, Atlantis is more than just a lost city. It is a symbol of the rise and fall of all civilizations, a reminder of the impermanence of human greatness. In many ways, the story of Atlantis mirrors the fate of countless civilizations throughout history. From the ancient Egyptians to the Mayans, from the Romans to the Aztecs, the pattern is the same. Great civilizations rise, flourish, and eventually collapse, often due to internal corruption, environmental collapse, or external invasion. The story of Atlantis taps into this deep, archetypal narrative, offering a warning about the dangers of overreaching ambition and the inevitability of decline. In this sense, Atlantis is not just a myth. It is a reflection of the human experience, a story that resonates across time and culture. Whether Atlantis was a real place or a mythological construct, its legacy endures. The search for the lost city may never yield definitive answers, but the story of Atlantis continues to inspire exploration, debate, and wonder. The mystery of Atlantis is not just about finding a physical location. It is about uncovering the deeper truths hidden within the myth. Truths about the nature of civilization, the limits of human ambition, and the delicate balance between progress and destruction. In this way, Atlantis remains an enduring symbol, a myth that will continue to captivate the human imagination for generations to come. The search for Atlantis has been a long and enduring quest, one that has captured the imaginations of adventurers, scholars, and dreamers for centuries. Since Plato first introduced the concept of the lost island, the question of its location has sparked countless theories and explorations, each with its own set of assumptions and interpretations. Plato's description of Atlantis was both vivid and grand, painting a picture of an island civilization that was both technologically advanced and culturally prosperous. Yet, despite the striking detail with which he described the city, there is no concrete evidence to confirm its existence or pinpoint its exact location. Over time, many have attempted to determine where Atlantis might have been, from the Mediterranean to the Caribbean and even Antarctica, but the question remains unresolved. One of the earliest theories about the location of Atlantis came from those who believed that Plato's description of the island's location beyond the Pillars of Hercules, what we now know as the Strait of Gibraltar, pointed to a site somewhere in the Mediterranean. The Mediterranean was the center of the ancient world, and many believed that a great civilization would have been situated there. Over time, this theory expanded to encompass various islands and coastal regions within the Mediterranean that could fit Plato's description of Atlantis. Among the most popular contenders in this region was the island of Santorini, located in the Aegean Sea. Santorini, which was once home to the Minoan civilization, experienced one of the most catastrophic volcanic eruptions in recorded history around 1600 BCE. This eruption caused widespread devastation across the island and triggered a series of tsunamis that affected other parts of the Mediterranean. The eruption is often seen as a likely candidate for the kind of cataclysmic event Plato described in his account of Atlantis' destruction. The Minoans, known for their advanced architecture, art, and maritime skills, were thought by some to bear striking similarities to the Atlanteans Plato described. Just like Atlantis, the Minoan civilization was known for its wealth, technological prowess, and maritime dominance, and their sudden fall, caused by a natural disaster, mirrored the fate Plato attributed to Atlantis. The similarities between the two civilizations, combined with the catastrophic eruption of Santorini, led some to argue that the story of Atlantis could be based on the Minoan civilization's destruction. While the Minoan theory is one of the most compelling, it is by no means the only one. The Mediterranean, with its vast history and numerous ancient cultures, has long been considered a likely location for Atlantis. Other proponents have suggested that Atlantis might have been situated on the island of Crete, also part of the Minoan civilization, or even in the waters surrounding the coast of northern Africa. For these theorists, the region beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which Plato described as Atlantis' location, might have referred to the wider Mediterranean, rather than a specific island or landmass. Some even propose that Atlantis might have been located on the shores of the Atlas Mountains in Morocco, which would fit Plato's description of the island being larger than Libya and Asia combined. However, despite the various theories that place Atlantis in the Mediterranean, no conclusive evidence has ever been found to support the idea that the city once existed in this region. As interest in the legend of Atlantis spread, new theories emerged that placed the lost city far beyond the Mediterranean. One of the most well-known of these theories suggests that Atlantis was located in the Caribbean, particularly around the islands of the Bahamas and Cuba. This theory, which gained traction in the 20th century, posits that the Atlanteans might have traveled across the Atlantic to the Americas, establishing a thriving civilization there long before Columbus. Proponents of this theory point to underwater structures discovered off the coast of Cuba and the Bahamas as potential evidence of the lost city's existence. These structures, which appear to be man-made, have fueled speculation about the possibility of an ancient, technologically advanced civilization existing in the Caribbean long before the arrival of European explorers. The theory that Atlantis was located in the Caribbean is intriguing, especially given the geographical details provided by Plato. He described the island of Atlantis as being larger than Libya and Asia combined, a size that would be consistent with the vast areas of the Caribbean. Moreover, he mentioned that Atlantis was a seafaring civilization, one that exerted influence over surrounding lands through trade and military conquest, a description that fits with the idea of an island civilization in the Caribbean, connected to the Americas by maritime routes. The underwater structures off the coast of Cuba, often cited as evidence of Atlantis, are still the subject of debate, however. Critics argue that these formations are natural, and the possibility that they are man-made has yet to be proven conclusively. The idea that Atlantis was located in the Caribbean remains speculative, with no solid evidence to back up the claims. The search for Atlantis didn't stop in the Caribbean, however. Some theorists have proposed even more unconventional locations, including the polar regions. Perhaps the most outlandish theory of all is the idea that Atlantis was once located in Antarctica. This theory, which has gained popularity in some circles, posits that Atlantis was situated in a much warmer climate long before the continent became frozen. Proponents of this theory argue that the shift in the Earth's axis caused the continent to gradually become covered in ice, burying the remnants of the advanced civilization that once thrived there. This theory suggests that Atlantis was not just an ordinary island, but a highly advanced society, with technologies far beyond anything known in ancient history. The theory that Atlantis was located in Antarctica is based on several speculative ideas, none of which have been proven. The most prominent argument is that the continent's position was once much closer to the equator, and that a dramatic shift in the Earth's axis caused it to move into its current icy location. If this theory were true, it would mean that Antarctica once enjoyed a temperate climate, making it suitable for human habitation. Some supporters of this idea point to ancient maps, such as a Piri Reis map, which depicts parts of Antarctica without the ice sheet. However, this interpretation is controversial, and mainstream scientists dismiss the idea that Antarctica was once home to a thriving civilization. The lack of geological evidence to support this theory makes it highly speculative, and it remains on the fringe of Atlantis scholarship. Despite the numerous theories about where Atlantis might have been located, there is no clear consensus among researchers and historians. Some believe that the true location of Atlantis will one day be discovered, while others argue that the city's existence is nothing more than a myth. The problem with pinpointing Atlantis' location is that Plato's account is somewhat vague and open to interpretation. He describes the island as being larger than Libya and Asia combined, but does not provide specific details about its size, shape, or geographical coordinates. He also mentions that Atlantis was located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which have been variously interpreted as the Strait of Gibraltar or as a metaphor for the farthest reaches of the known world. Without more concrete information, determining the exact location of Atlantis is a challenging task. One of the key difficulties in the search for Atlantis is that the story, as told by Plato, is couched in allegory. Many scholars believe that Plato's depiction of Atlantis is a moral lesson rather than a historical account. The story of Atlantis' rise and fall is often seen as a metaphor for the dangers of unchecked ambition and the consequences of moral decline. The destruction of Atlantis, caused by earthquakes and floods, can be interpreted as a symbol of the fragility of civilization and the inevitability of decline when a society loses its sense of balance and humility. If this interpretation is correct, then the search for a physical Atlantis may be misguided. In this view, Atlantis exists not as a real place, but as a symbol of the cycles of rise and fall that all civilizations experience. Despite the challenges and the lack of concrete evidence, the quest for Atlantis continues to fascinate people around the world. The idea of a lost civilization, hidden somewhere beneath the sea or buried in the sands of time, continues to ignite curiosity and wonder. Whether Atlantis was a real place or a fictional story, the legend remains an enduring symbol of mystery, exploration, and the search for knowledge. For those who seek Atlantis, the journey is not just about finding a city. It is about uncovering the deeper truths that the myth represents: the fragility of civilization, the dangers of overreaching, and the timeless quest for discovery. Perhaps the true location of Atlantis will never be known, But the search itself serves as a reminder of the power of myth and the enduring human desire to explore the unknown. The story of Atlantis, a tale of grandeur, hubris, and sudden destruction, has remained one of the most fascinating mysteries in human history. But it is not only the physical disappearance of the island that intrigues us. It is also the deeper philosophical and moral lessons that have been drawn from the story over the centuries. Plato's account of Atlantis, while possibly rooted in historical events, has also served as a cautionary tale, a narrative that warns of the dangers of unchecked power, the corruption of societies, and the ultimate fate of civilizations that lose their moral compass. The concept of Atlantis, whether real or imagined, embodies universal themes that resonate with the human experience. One of the key elements of the Atlantis myth is the depiction of a society that, at its height, was advanced both technologically and culturally. Plato describes a civilization with vast wealth, intricate engineering, and an advanced system of government. The people of Atlantis, he suggests, lived in harmony with nature, building a sophisticated society that seemed to possess everything one could desire. From the enormous size of the island itself, which Plato claimed was larger than Libya and Asia combined, to the incredible feats of architecture and engineering, Atlantis was a paradise. The city was divided into concentric rings, with a grand temple dedicated to Poseidon at its center, surrounded by luxurious gardens, palaces, and intricate canals. This detailed vision of Atlantis created an image of a utopia, a place where human achievement and the natural world existed in perfect balance. However, Plato's account takes a dark turn as he describes the gradual moral decay of the Atlanteans. What began as a harmonious and prosperous society eventually descended into corruption, greed, and excess. The once noble Atlanteans, who were originally favored by the gods, became intoxicated by their own power. As they grew more wealthy and powerful, they began to forget the virtues that had originally defined them. They became selfish, arrogant, and power-hungry, and in doing so, they lost the respect and favor of the gods. The very qualities that made their society so successful, technological prowess, military might, and economic power, became the seeds of their destruction. Atlantis, in this sense, represents the idea that even the greatest civilizations can fall when they lose their ethical foundation. Plato's story of Atlantis is often interpreted as a metaphor for the dangers of unchecked ambition and the hubris that often accompanies great power. The word hubris, in ancient Greek, referred to excessive pride or arrogance, particularly in defiance of the gods. In the case of Atlantis, the gods punished the people for their hubris by sending a series of natural disasters that ultimately caused the island to sink into the sea. The destruction of Atlantis, then, serves as a powerful reminder of the limits of human ambition and the consequences of moral decay. It reflects a view of the world in which the divine is constantly watching, and the balance between human achievement and divine favor is fragile. Atlantis, in this sense, is not just a story about a lost city. It is a timeless reflection on the relationship between humans and the divine, the rise and fall of civilizations, and the price of moral compromise. Over the centuries, the story of Atlantis has been adapted and reinterpreted by different cultures and thinkers, each of whom has used the myth to address their own concerns and anxieties about society and the future. In some ways, the myth of Atlantis has served as a mirror for each era, reflecting the values, fears, and aspirations of time. During the Renaissance, for example, the rediscovery of classical texts led to renewed interest in the story of Atlantis. The idea of a lost civilization, with its advanced technologies and rich culture, inspired many thinkers to imagine what might be possible if such knowledge could be rediscovered. For those who lived through the upheavals of the Renaissance, the story of Atlantis seemed to embody the idea that knowledge lost to the ages could one day be reclaimed, offering new hope for the future. In more modern times, the story of Atlantis has often been used as a symbol of the fragility of human civilization. As the world has witnessed the rise and fall of empires, the collapse of nations, and the devastation caused by wars and environmental disasters, the story of Atlantis has taken on a more cautionary tone. In this context, Atlantis represents a warning of what could happen to any civilization that grows too complacent or indulgent, that loses sight of its ethical foundations, or that fails to recognize the fragility of its existence. The narrative of Atlantis, therefore, becomes a metaphor for the cyclical nature of history, Civilizations rise, thrive, and eventually collapse, often as a result of internal corruption or external forces that cannot be controlled. In this sense, Atlantis is not a single city or civilization, but a universal archetype of human history itself. The destruction of Atlantis also speaks to the power of nature and the inherent vulnerability of human societies. Plato's account, in which the city sinks beneath the sea as a result of earthquakes and floods, suggests that even the most advanced civilizations are at the mercy of forces beyond their control. This theme is particularly relevant in today's world, where natural disasters such as earthquakes, tsunamis, and climate change pose a constant threat to human populations. The idea that Atlantis was destroyed by natural forces serves as a reminder of the fragility of human creations and the unpredictability of the natural world. It also raises questions about the sustainability of modern civilization and whether we are, in some sense, repeating the mistakes of Atlantis, becoming too consumed by our own power and technological advances while neglecting the long-term consequences of our actions. In many ways, the myth of Atlantis serves as a reflection of human hope and despair. On the one hand, Atlantis represents an ideal, a vision of what a perfect civilization might look like, one that is technologically advanced, morally virtuous, and in harmony with nature. On the other hand, the fall of Atlantis is a sobering reminder of the inherent impermanence of human achievement. The idea that such a great and prosperous civilization could vanish overnight is both tragic and humbling. It suggests that no matter how advanced or successful a society becomes, it is always vulnerable to the forces of time, nature, and moral corruption. Atlantis, then, is not just a lost city. It is a symbol of the fleeting nature of human greatness and the delicate balance that must be maintained if civilizations are to endure. This duality of hope and despair is reflected in the many interpretations of the Atlantis myth. For some, the story is one of warning, a cautionary tale that urges us to consider the consequences of our actions and to remain humble in the face of power. For others, the story represents the eternal human desire for a better world, a longing for a lost paradise that can never be reclaimed. The search for Atlantis, whether it is a physical search for a lost city or a metaphorical search for wisdom and enlightenment, continues to drive human curiosity and exploration. The very fact that the story has endured for thousands of years suggests that the lessons contained within it are timeless and resonate with the deepest parts of the human psyche. In contemporary times, the myth of Atlantis has been revived in popular culture, often with a sense of wonder and adventure. The idea of a lost city, filled with ancient knowledge and advanced technology, continues to inspire storytellers and filmmakers. From Journey to the Center of the Earth to Disney's Atlantis, The Lost Empire, the idea of Atlantis has been reimagined in countless ways. In many of these retellings, Atlantis is presented as a symbol of lost potential, a place where human beings once achieved greatness, but ultimately failed to maintain their ethical integrity. Whether as a literal city or a metaphorical concept, Atlantis represents the eternal struggle to balance human ambition with moral responsibility, to build a society that is not only technologically advanced, but also just and virtuous. Ultimately, the story of Atlantis continues to captivate us because it speaks to our deepest fears and hopes about civilization. It asks the question, can humanity learn from the mistakes of the past, or are we doomed to repeat them? Atlantis represents the dream of what could be a society that has reached the pinnacle of achievement, while also serving as a warning of what might happen if we lose sight of the very values that sustain us. In this way, Atlantis is not just a myth. It is a living symbol, one that continues to inspire, caution, and provoke. Whether real or fictional, the lessons of Atlantis will continue to resonate as long as there are civilizations striving to understand the delicate balance between power, ethics, and the natural world. The narrative of Atlantis, with its mystique and allure, continues to captivate the human imagination. Despite centuries of searching and speculation, the true nature of Atlantis remains elusive, shrouded in myth and ambiguity. Some view it as a historical fact, an actual civilization lost to time, while others believe it to be an allegory designed to convey moral and philosophical lessons. The search for the lost city of Atlantis is not just about finding its physical location, but also about exploring the deeper meanings and timeless themes that Plato's account has inspired. As the centuries have passed, the Atlantis story has transcended its origins, becoming more than a tale of forgotten island. It is now a symbol of human aspiration, failure, and eternal quest for understanding. While the mystery surrounding Atlantis endures, the story itself is relatively clear, at least in its broadest strokes. According to Plato, the island of Atlantis was once a powerful and prosperous civilization, far beyond the reach of the known world. Atlantis was described as an island larger than Libya and Asia combined, situated beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which we now know as the Strait of Gibraltar. This strategic location placed Atlantis at the center of the known world, giving it control over a vast empire that spanned across Europe, Africa, and Asia. The Atlanteans, as described by Plato, were a seafaring people, skilled in trade, exploration, and warfare, and their civilization was marked by advanced technologies, grand architecture, and incredible wealth. The city of Atlantis itself was a marvel, with concentric rings of land and water, at the center of which stood a magnificent palace dedicated to Poseidon, the god of the sea. But Atlantis was not simply an advanced civilization. It was a utopia, a society that lived in harmony with nature and the divine. The people of Atlantis, as Plato described them, were morally virtuous and lived by a code of justice, fairness, and balance. They were guided by the wisdom of their leaders and protection of their patron god, Poseidon. It was a time of peace and prosperity, with no conflict or strife, and the island was a beacon of human achievement. The Atlanteans were blessed by the gods, and their civilization flourished as a result. However, as the centuries passed, the Atlanteans began to change. The virtues that had once defined their society began to erode, and the influence of power, wealth, and pride took hold. The once harmonious society began to suffer from internal strife and corruption. The gods, angered by the Atlanteans' moral decline, withdrew their favor, and Atlantis began its slow descent into ruin. The final blow came when the gods decided to punish Atlantis for its hubris by sending a series of natural disasters, including earthquakes and floods, which ultimately caused the island to sink beneath the sea, disappearing without a trace. While this story is well known, the exact nature of the disaster that struck Atlantis remains a subject of intense speculation. Plato's description of Atlantis' destruction is vivid, with the island supposedly vanishing in a single day and night. It is this dramatic and sudden disappearance that has fueled much of the intrigue surrounding the myth of Atlantis. Was Atlantis truly destroyed by natural forces, or did the gods themselves play a more active role in its downfall? Plato's account is not entirely clear on this matter, but the symbolism behind the sudden disappearance of Atlantis is undeniable. It serves as a powerful reminder of the fragility of human achievement and the consequences of losing sight of the moral values that sustain a civilization. The moral lesson in Plato's story is clear. Civilizations are vulnerable to destruction when they fall prey to pride, excess, and moral corruption. In the case of Atlantis, the Atlanteans were punished for their arrogance, for believing that their wealth and power could protect them from the consequences of their actions. This theme of hubris, the overstepping of human limits, runs deep throughout the Atlantis myth. Plato's tale is, in many ways, a reflection of his views on human nature and the inevitable downfall of civilizations that fail to maintain their moral integrity. Yet, even as Plato's story serves as a warning, it also raises profound questions about the nature of civilization itself. What makes a society great? How do civilizations rise to power, and why do they fall? What role does morality play in the success or failure of a civilization? These are questions that have echoed throughout history, and they continue to resonate in the modern world. The rise and fall of Atlantis may have been an allegory, but also touches on universal truths about human societies and their vulnerabilities. Over the centuries, the Atlantis myth has been reinterpreted and reshaped in many different ways, each generation finding new meaning in the story. In ancient Greece, Plato's account was seen as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked ambition. In the Renaissance, the rediscovery of classical works sparked a renewed interest in Atlantis, with thinkers seeing it as a symbol of lost knowledge and wisdom, a reminder of the potential of human achievement. During the Age of Exploration, as European nations began to venture beyond their borders, the idea of a lost civilization like Atlantis became a powerful metaphor for the discovery of new lands and new possibilities. In more modern times, the story of Atlantis has taken on even greater significance. In a world dominated by rapid technological advancement, environmental degradation, and political instability, Atlantis serves as a symbol of both human potential and human fragility. The idea that an advanced civilization could disappear overnight, Swallowed by the Sea is a sobering thought in an age where environmental collapse, climate change, and natural disasters are real and present dangers. The Atlantis myth has been co-opted by environmentalists, philosophers, and historians, each finding in it a powerful metaphor for precariousness of modern civilization. In addition to its moral lessons, the story of Atlantis has also become a symbol of lost knowledge and the quest for rediscovery. The idea of a once great civilization, now lost in the sands of time, sparks our collective imagination. Could there have been ancient technologies and wisdom that have been lost to history? The search for Atlantis, whether it is a physical search for a city beneath the sea or a metaphorical search for wisdom and enlightenment, continues to inspire people around the world. Whether or not Atlantis ever existed, the idea of it represents a yearning for something greater, something beyond the limitations of the present. It embodies a human desire to explore the unknown, to uncover lost truths, and to transcend the limitations of our current understanding. The search for Atlantis has led explorers, archaeologists, and theorists to propose countless locations as the site of the lost civilization. From the Mediterranean to the Caribbean to Antarctica, the quest for Atlantis has taken many forms. Yet, despite these efforts, no definitive evidence has ever been found. Some believe that the very absence of evidence is part of the allure of Atlantis. It is a place of mystery, a city forever lost to time. The search for Atlantis, therefore, becomes more than a literal quest. It is an exploration of the unknown, a journey into the realms of possibility, imagination, and myth. But perhaps the most enduring aspect of the Atlantis myth is its ability to provoke thought about our own civilization. The story of Atlantis is not just about a lost city. It is about the cyclical nature of human history, the rise and fall of societies, and the dangers of moral decay. In many ways, Atlantis represents the ultimate cautionary tale, warning that no civilization, no matter how advanced or powerful, is immune to destruction. The lessons of Atlantis are as relevant today as they were in ancient Greece. The fate of a civilization is determined not just by its technological prowess or military might, but by its ethical foundation and its relationship with nature. In the end, the story of Atlantis is more than just a myth. It is a reflection of the human condition itself. It speaks to our greatest hopes and deepest fears, our desire for greatness, and our awareness of our own fragility. Atlantis represents a pinnacle of human achievement, but it also serves as a reminder that greatness is fleeting and that all civilizations, no matter how mighty, are vulnerable to the forces of time, nature, and human folly. The story of Atlantis may never be fully understood, but its enduring power lies in its ability to inspire us to reflect on the nature of civilization, morality, and the ultimate fate of humanity. Whether or not Atlantis ever existed, its myth continues to resonate with us, offering a timeless warning about the dangers of overreaching and the consequences of forgetting the values that sustain us. The idea of a lost civilization, hidden beneath the ocean or buried in the sands of time, has captured the human imagination for millennia. At the heart of this fascination lies the myth of Atlantis, a story that speaks to humanity's longing for knowledge, power, and transcendence. While some regard the story as nothing more than a legend, others believe that there is some kernel of truth buried within Plato's account. Atlantis has become more than just a tale of a vanished city. It has evolved into a symbol of human aspiration, a reflection of our desire to uncover the mysteries of the past, and a cautionary tale about the fragility of civilizations. For centuries, people have searched for Atlantis, whether as a literal, physical place or as a metaphorical representation of lost wisdom and the consequences of moral decay. One of the most enduring questions surrounding Atlantis is whether it was a real civilization or simply a fictional creation of Plato's imagination. Plato's account of Atlantis, as told in the dialogues Timaeus and Critias, is rich with detail, describing a mighty island larger than Libya and Asia combined, with grand palaces, advanced technology, and a society ruled by divine favor. However, there are no corroborating historical records to support Plato's story, leading many scholars to question whether Atlantis was a historical reality or merely a product of philosophical allegory. Some believe that Plato used the story to convey moral lessons about the dangers of hubris and the corruption of societies, using Atlantis as a fictional backdrop to explore themes of power, virtue, and divine retribution. According to this interpretation, Atlantis was never meant to be taken literally, but rather as a cautionary tale meant to teach valuable lessons about the nature of human civilization. Yet, despite the lack of concrete evidence, There are those who argue that Atlantis was based on a real civilization, one that existed long before Plato's time, and was lost to history in a cataclysmic event. The idea that Atlantis could have been a real place is compelling, especially given the level of detail in Plato's account. The island's vast size, its advanced infrastructure, and its powerful military seem too elaborate to be merely the product of imagination. Furthermore, the story of Atlantis is consistent with other ancient myths of lost civilizations, suggesting that Plato may have been drawing on earlier traditions or stories passed down through generations. Over the years, many theories have been proposed regarding the location of Atlantis, each offering a different interpretation of Plato's description. One of the most widely discussed theories posits that Atlantis was located in the Mediterranean, particularly around the island of Santorini. The eruption of the Thera volcano around 1600 BCE, which devastated the Minoan civilization, is often cited as a potential source of inspiration for Plato's account of Atlantis. The Minoans, known for their advanced technology and wealth, share many similarities with the Atlanteans described by Plato, including their maritime prowess and their sophisticated architecture. Some believe that the catastrophic eruption of Thera, which caused widespread destruction and triggered tsunamis, could have been an event that Plato referenced when describing the sinking of Atlantis. The Minoan sudden decline, coupled with the evidence of a volcanic disaster, makes the Santorini theory one of the most plausible explanations for the origins of the Atlantis myth. However, while the Santorini theory is compelling, it is not without its challenges. For one, there is no direct evidence linking the Minoan civilization to the specific details described by Plato, such as the concentric rings of land and water or the elaborate city planning. Moreover, the Minoan civilization did not completely disappear in the wake of the Thera eruption. Rather, it experienced a gradual decline over several centuries, suggesting that the destruction of Atlantis, as described by Plato, may have been more abrupt and catastrophic than what occurred in the case of Minoans. This raises a question of whether the Atlantis myth is based on a real event or whether it is a symbolic narrative, meant to convey deeper truths about the rise and fall of civilizations. In addition to the Mediterranean theory, other proposals have suggested that Atlantis could have been located in regions far beyond the known world of ancient Greece. Some theorists have suggested that the lost city could have been situated in the Caribbean, particularly in the area around the Bahamas or Cuba. This theory is based on the idea that the Atlanteans were a seafaring people capable of navigating vast distances across the ocean. The discovery of underwater structures off the coast of Cuba and the Bahamas has fueled speculation that these could be the remains of an ancient civilization. While the evidence of this theory remains inconclusive, the idea of a lost city in the Caribbean has captured the imagination of many, especially given the region's rich history of ancient civilizations, including the Maya and the Taino. Another, more radical theory suggests that Atlantis was located in Antarctica. According to proponents of this theory, the continent was once situated in a much warmer climate, making it habitable for advanced human civilizations. This idea is based on a theory of polar shift, which posits that the Earth's axis has shifted over time, causing the geographic poles to move. If Antarctica was once closer to the equator, it could have supported life, including a thriving civilization like Atlantis. This theory is highly speculative and lacks strong scientific backing, but has captured the imagination of those who believe that ancient civilizations may have existed in places we now consider inhospitable. While the theory remains controversial, it reflects the enduring mystery surrounding Atlantis and the willingness of people to search for lost knowledge in the most unlikely of places. Regardless of where Atlantis was located, the search for the lost city speaks to a deeper human longing for discovery and understanding. For centuries, explorers, archaeologists, and scholars have embarked on quests to uncover the truth behind the Atlantis myth, each pursuing their own interpretation of Plato's story. Some have searched the Mediterranean, while others have scoured the Caribbean, the Azores, or even the Antarctic ice sheets. But despite all the efforts, no definitive proof of Atlantis has ever been found. This lack of evidence has led many to question whether Atlantis was ever a physical place at all, or whether it was simply a metaphorical creation designed to convey important moral and philosophical lessons. For those who continue to believe in the historical reality of Atlantis, the search for its lost city is far from over. The myth of Atlantis continues to inspire exploration, not just for its potential to uncover forgotten civilization, but for the deeper truths it represents. The story of Atlantis is not just about the rise and fall of a single city. It is about the cyclical nature of human civilization, the fragility of human achievement, and the lessons that we can learn from the past. The Atlantis myth speaks to our collective desire to understand the course of history, the forces that shape societies, and the potential for greatness and ruin that exists within every civilization. For others, the Atlantis story is less about finding a lost city and more about understanding the lessons it offers. The destruction of Atlantis, as described by Plato, is a powerful allegory for the consequences of moral and ethical decay. The sudden downfall of a once great civilization, caused by its own hubris and greed, is a timeless reminder of the dangers of overreaching ambition. The Atlantis myth warns that no civilization, no matter how advanced, is immune to destruction if it loses sight of its moral foundations. In this sense, the story of Atlantis is less about a specific place and more about the eternal truths that transcend time and geography. While the search for Atlantis may continue to captivate the human imagination, it is important to remember that the myth itself has endured because of the profound lessons it teaches. Whether Atlantis was a real place or a fictional creation, the story is a reflection of humanity's greatest aspirations and deepest fears. It speaks to the potential for greatness and the inevitability of decline, the hope for wisdom and the danger of arrogance. The Atlantis myth endures because it taps into universal themes that are as relevant today as they were thousands of years ago. The rise and fall of civilizations, the consequences of moral corruption, and the need for humility and balance in the face of power. Atlantis, whether real or imagined, continues to resonate with us because it offers a timeless warning and a reminder of the fragile nature of human achievement. The story of Atlantis is a journey into the heart of human longing, curiosity, and ambition. As we delve into the myth, we not only explore the possibilities of a lost civilization, but also confront the fundamental questions about the rise and fall of societies. The legend of Atlantis, whether real or fictional, continues to capture the imagination of countless generations, offering both inspiration and caution. For many, the quest to uncover Atlantis is more than just a search for a city. It's a metaphor for our own aspirations and the dangers that accompany the pursuit of greatness. The earliest known account of Atlantis comes from the writings of the Greek philosopher Plato, who presented it in two dialogues, Timaeus and Critias. In these works, Atlantis is described as a vast island located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which we now recognize as the Strait of Gibraltar. According to Plato, Atlantis was larger than Libya and Asia combined, a place where a highly advanced civilization flourished for thousands of years. The Atlanteans, as he depicted them, were a powerful and prosperous people, blessed by the gods and possessing extraordinary wealth, engineering prowess, and military strength. The city itself was said to be an architectural marvel, built with concentric rings of land and water, its center housing a magnificent temple dedicated to Poseidon, the god of the sea. Despite the grandeur of Atlantis, Plato's story is not one of unblemished triumph. The city's ultimate fate is marked by a tragic downfall that serves as a core moral lesson of the myth. As the story goes, the Atlanteans grew increasingly corrupt over time, their virtues eroded by the very power and wealth that had once made them great. They became arrogant, greedy, and indulgent, forgetting the principles of justice and harmony that had originally guided their society. The gods, displeased with their moral decline, decided to punish them, sending cataclysmic earthquakes and floods that caused the entire island of Atlantis to sink into the sea, disappearing forever. The dramatic end of Atlantis is one of the most striking aspects of the myth, and it is this event that has captivated the imaginations of countless individuals throughout history.
The idea of a highly advanced civilization being swallowed by the ocean in a single day and night raises profound questions about the fragility of human achievement. How could a civilization that seemed to have mastered technology, architecture, and governance fall so suddenly and completely? What does the destruction of Atlantis say about the nature of power, the moral limits of human ambition, and the forces that shape history? Plato's story of Atlantis has been interpreted in a variety of ways over the centuries. Some see it as a historical account of a real civilization, while others regard it as an allegory meant to teach important lessons about the nature of power and morality. Regardless of the interpretation, the moral lesson of Atlantis remains consistent. The story serves as a warning about the dangers of hubris, the excessive pride that leads people and societies to believe they are invincible. Atlantis' fall is a cautionary tale, warning that no matter how great or powerful a civilization becomes, it is always vulnerable to its own moral failings and the forces of nature. This theme of moral decline is central to the Atlantis myth. Plato's account presents a society that was initially virtuous and just, living in harmony with the gods and the natural world. The Atlanteans were described as possessing remarkable qualities, including a deep respect for wisdom, fairness, and balance. Their city was a model of perfection, with sophisticated infrastructure and a just government. The people of Atlantis were also said to have a close connection to their patron god, Poseidon, who helped guide their civilization's development. However, as time passed and their power grew, the Atlanteans became intoxicated by their own success. Their once noble virtues gave way to greed, arrogance, and excess. The gods, displeased with this shift in behavior, withdrew their favor, and the once great civilization began to crumble. The downfall of Atlantis is often seen as a metaphor for the corrupting influence of power. The story serves as a reminder that when a society becomes too focused on wealth and dominance, it risks losing sight of the moral principles that sustain it. This loss of virtue, according to Plato, led to the destruction of Atlantis. The gods' punishment, in the form of a devastating natural disaster, can be interpreted as a manifestation of divine justice. The message is clear: societies that disregard their moral foundations are doomed to fall, no matter how advanced or prosperous they may be. In many ways, the myth of Atlantis resonates with themes that are still relevant today. The idea of a civilization rising to great heights only to be brought down by its own moral failings is a recurring pattern throughout history. We see it in the rise and fall of empires, in the collapse of great nations, and in the cyclical nature of human progress. Civilizations throughout history have struggled with the same dilemmas faced by the Atlanteans: how to maintain balance, virtue, and wisdom in the face of power, wealth, and ambition. The destruction of Atlantis, then, is not just a lesson for the ancient world but a universal story that applies to all civilizations, both past and present. The Atlantis myth also speaks to the broader human experience of impermanence and loss. The sudden disappearance of Atlantis, swallowed by the sea in a moment of divine wrath, serves as a powerful reminder of the fragility of human achievement. No matter how impressive or enduring a civilization may seem, it is always vulnerable to forces beyond its control. In the case of Atlantis, these forces were both moral and natural: divine punishment for moral decline and the unpredictable power of nature in the form of earthquakes and floods. The destruction of Atlantis underscores the reality that all civilizations, no matter how great, are subject to the forces of time and fate. This theme of impermanence resonates deeply with the human condition, reminding us that everything we build is temporary and that no achievement is immune to decay. Over the centuries, the story of Atlantis has inspired countless theories and speculations about the location of the lost city. Some scholars believe that Atlantis may have been based on a real historical event, such as the eruption of the Thera volcano on the island of Santorini in the Aegean Sea. Others have proposed that Atlantis was a fictional creation, designed by Plato to serve as an allegory for the dangers of moral decay. Regardless of its true origins, the Atlantis myth continues to capture the imagination, prompting endless speculation about what may have happened to the lost city and whether it was ever truly real. The quest for Atlantis has taken on a life of its own, with adventurers, archaeologists, and scholars dedicating their careers to finding the lost city. Some have proposed locations as diverse as the Mediterranean, the Caribbean, Antarctica, and even the Americas. The search for Atlantis, however, is more than just a hunt for a physical city. It is a quest for understanding. It is a search for knowledge about the past, a desire to uncover the secrets of lost civilizations, and an exploration of the forces that shape human history. Even though the physical location of Atlantis remains unknown, the myth itself continues to hold deep meaning for people around the world. The idea of a lost civilization, hidden beneath the ocean or buried in the ruins of time, speaks to a fundamental human desire for discovery and understanding. It taps into our fascination with the unknown, our curiosity about what came before us, and our yearning to uncover the mysteries of the past. Atlantis represents both the height of human achievement and the dangers of unchecked ambition, making it a powerful symbol of the human condition.
In many ways, the myth of Atlantis is a reflection of our own desires and fears. It speaks to our longing for greatness and our fear of failure, our desire to transcend the limitations of our current world, and our awareness of the fragility of civilization. The story of Atlantis offers both a dream of what humanity could achieve and a warning about what might be lost if we lose sight of our values. Whether real or imagined, the Atlantis myth continues to inspire us, reminding us of the impermanence of human achievement and the importance of maintaining balance, virtue, and wisdom in the face of power and wealth. The myth of Atlantis continues to be one of the most compelling and mysterious stories in human history. Its allure is not just because of its dramatic narrative, a mighty civilization sinking beneath the waves, but because it speaks to our deepest fears and desires. The idea that a great, advanced society could vanish without a trace challenges our assumptions about permanence, power, and the trajectory of human civilization. More than just a story of a lost city, Atlantis has become a powerful symbol that transcends time and geography. It's a reflection of human aspirations and the ever-present threat of moral and societal decay. For centuries, the question of Atlantis has fascinated scholars, explorers, philosophers, and writers. Was it real, or just a tale woven from the imagination of the great Greek philosopher Plato? And if it was real, where is it? What happened to it? At the heart of the story of Atlantis is the idea of a utopian civilization, one that represented the pinnacle of human achievement. According to Plato's account, Atlantis was an island larger than Libya and Asia combined, situated beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which we now recognize as the Strait of Gibraltar. It was a place where nature and civilization existed in perfect harmony, a society that had mastered engineering, architecture, and governance. The city was built with concentric rings of land and water, a breathtaking feat of urban planning that combined both beauty and functionality. The Atlanteans were a powerful people, both rich and technologically advanced, but their power and prosperity came at a price. As time went on, their once pure virtues, wisdom, fairness, and justice, gave way to corruption, greed, and arrogance. Their downfall, as Plato described it, was not a slow decline, but a sudden and catastrophic event. The gods, displeased with the Atlanteans' moral decay, sent a series of natural disasters, and in a single day and night, Atlantis sank beneath the ocean. For Plato, the fall of Atlantis was more than just a story of a city lost to the waves. It was a moral lesson about the dangers of unchecked ambition and the consequences of losing sight of virtue. Atlantis was a cautionary tale that warned of the corrupting influence of wealth and power, the dangers of overstepping human limits, and fragility of even the greatest civilizations. The Atlanteans were originally favored by the gods, living in a state of peace and prosperity. But as they grew more powerful, they became arrogant and began to believe that they were above the moral laws that governed other men. They forgot their responsibilities to the gods, to the natural world, and to each other. The gods, in turn, withdrew their favor, and the once great civilization was destroyed by forces beyond their control. The moral lessons embedded in the story of Atlantis have resonated throughout history, influencing philosophers, writers, and thinkers. The idea that a society's moral character is tied to its success and survival is one that has appeared in many cultures. And the Atlantis myth serves as a powerful reminder of the delicate balance between human ambition and ethical responsibility. Plato's story is often read as a critique of the Athenian society in which he lived. In many ways, it was a reflection of his concerns about the rise of imperialism and the moral decay that he saw in the world around him. The Atlanteans, in Plato's account, represent the dangers of excessive pride and the collapse of society that forgets its ethical foundations. Over the centuries, the story of Atlantis has been interpreted in many different ways, depending on the historical and cultural context in which it was read. During the Renaissance, when classical works were rediscovered, there was a renewed interest in the Atlantis myth. Some thinkers, like Francis Bacon, saw Atlantis as a symbol of lost knowledge, an advanced civilization whose wisdom could be rediscovered and used to elevate human society. Others, particularly during the Age of Enlightenment, viewed Atlantis as a warning against the dangers of unchecked scientific and technological progress, seeing it as a reflection of the need for moral and ethical limits on human ambition. In modern times, the story of Atlantis has continued to capture the imagination of explorers, archaeologists, and theorists, many of whom have attempted to locate the lost city or explain its mysterious disappearance. While many have sought to uncover Atlantis in the physical world, the more profound and lasting influence of the myth may lie in the way it functions as a symbol of human potential and fragility. Atlantis represents the dream of a perfect civilization, one that has mastered the forces of nature, achieved unparalleled wealth, and created a society based on harmony and wisdom. Yet, it is also a story of loss and decay, a reminder that even most powerful civilizations are vulnerable to moral corruption and natural forces. The idea that Atlantis could vanish in a single day serves as a potent metaphor for the impermanence of human achievement. Civilizations rise and fall, and the fate of empires is often determined by forces beyond human control. The search for Atlantis, both literal and metaphorical, continues to inspire people around the world.
For some, it is a quest to find a lost city, to uncover the secrets of a civilization that may have once possessed wisdom and technology beyond our comprehension. For others, the search for Atlantis is symbolic, a search for lost knowledge, wisdom, and a deeper understanding of the forces that shape human history. The enduring popularity of the Atlantis myth speaks to a deeper longing within the human soul, a desire to uncover the mysteries of the past, to learn from the mistakes of previous civilizations, and to strive for a better future. There have been many theories about the location of Atlantis over the years. Some suggest that it could be found in the Mediterranean, perhaps near the island of Santorini, which was devastated by a volcanic eruption around 1600 BCE. The Minoans, a civilization that flourished on the island of Crete around the same time, were known for their advanced culture and maritime prowess, and many see the collapse of the Minoan civilization as a possible source for the Atlantis myth. Others have proposed locations in the Caribbean, particularly the Bahamas, citing underwater structures and anomalies that some believe could be the remains of Atlantis. Some even suggest that Atlantis may have been located in Antarctica, proposing that the continent was once temperate and capable of supporting life. Despite the many theories, no definitive evidence has ever been found to prove the existence of Atlantis, and the search continues to be a matter of speculation and intrigue. But even if Atlantis never existed as a physical place, the myth of Atlantis has a profound impact on the way we view the rise and fall of civilizations. The story serves as a warning that no civilization, no matter how advanced, is immune to decline. It reminds us that all societies are subject to the forces of time, nature, and human error. The Atlantis myth also raises important questions about the relationship between power and responsibility. What happens when a civilization becomes too powerful, too arrogant, and too disconnected from the virtues that once guided it? The fall of Atlantis is a stark reminder that the balance between human achievement and moral responsibility is delicate, and that a failure to maintain this balance can lead to catastrophe. Throughout history, civilizations have risen to great heights only to fall into decline, often as a result of moral and ethical failures. The ancient Egyptians, the Romans, the Maya, all of these societies reached the pinnacle of human achievement, only to be undone by internal corruption, external pressures, or a combination of both. In each case, the fall of these civilizations can be seen as a reflection of the same themes present in the story of Atlantis: the fragility of human achievement, the dangers of moral decline, and the inevitability of change. In many ways, the myth of Atlantis speaks to the cyclical nature of history itself. Civilizations rise, flourish, and then collapse, often in a way that seems sudden and inevitable. The Atlantis myth captures this cyclical pattern, presenting a civilization that achieves greatness, loses its moral center, and is ultimately destroyed by forces beyond its control. In this sense, Atlantis is not just a story of a lost city, but a metaphor for the way that all civilizations must eventually confront their own limitations and vulnerabilities. The myth invites us to reflect on the trajectory of our own societies and to consider the values and principles that will guide us as we face the challenges of the future. The story of Atlantis also speaks to the idea of lost knowledge. The concept of a lost civilization with advanced technologies and wisdom has fascinated people for centuries. The idea that ancient peoples might have possessed knowledge that was lost to time raises important questions about the nature of human progress. What if the Atlanteans had discovered things that we have forgotten? What if their downfall was not only a moral failure, but a loss of wisdom that could have propelled humanity forward? These questions reflected deep curiosity about the potential of human civilization and a desire to recover the lost knowledge of the past. In conclusion, the story of Atlantis continues to inspire and provoke thought because it touches on themes that are deeply embedded in the human experience. It is a story of greatness and fallibility, of power and vulnerability, of wisdom and hubris. Atlantis represents both the dream of human potential and the reality of its fragility. Whether Atlantis was a real civilization or a mythological creation, its enduring power lies in the timeless lessons it offers about the rise and fall of civilizations, the importance of virtue and balance, and the impermanence of all things. The search for Atlantis, whether literal or metaphorical, is a search for understanding. Understanding the past, understanding the forces that shape our world, and understanding the delicate balance between ambition and humility that determines the fate of civilizations. The legend of Atlantis has inspired people for millennia, and its impact on human thought cannot be overstated. It is a myth that carries with it not only the mystery of a lost civilization but also profound philosophical and moral lessons. The Atlantis myth speaks to the human condition, exploring themes of power, hubris, moral decline, and the fragility of civilization itself. It raises questions about the nature of human progress, the limits of human ambition, and the consequences of losing sight of the values that sustain a society. Despite the lack of concrete evidence supporting the existence of Atlantis, the story has persisted through centuries, becoming a cornerstone of mythological and historical discourse. To truly understand the significance of the Atlantis myth, we must explore both its historical context and the enduring influence it has had on philosophy, literature, and the broader human imagination. Plato's account of Atlantis, found in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, presents the island as an advanced civilization that flourished for thousands of years before its sudden and catastrophic downfall. Atlantis, according to Plato, was a vast island located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, the modern-day Strait of Gibraltar. The Atlanteans, a powerful and prosperous people, were said to possess advanced technologies, magnificent architecture, and a robust military. Their capital city was an architectural marvel, consisting of concentric rings of land and water, with a magnificent temple dedicated to Poseidon at its center. The island of Atlantis was larger than Libya and Asia combined, and the Atlanteans ruled over a vast empire that spanned Europe, Africa, and Asia. The society was initially virtuous, living in harmony with the gods and nature, but over time, their moral fiber deteriorated. The gods, angered by their moral decline and arrogance, sent a series of natural disasters, causing Atlantis to sink into the sea in a single day and night. The fall of Atlantis, as described by Plato, is central to the myth's moral lesson. Atlantis represents the dangers of hubris, the excessive pride and arrogance that lead a civilization to believe it is invincible. In Plato's view, the Atlanteans' moral downfall was directly tied to their growing wealth and power. As the Atlanteans expanded their empire and amassed riches, they became more corrupt. They lost sight of the virtues that had once guided their society: wisdom, fairness, and justice. They became consumed by greed and ambition, thinking themselves above the laws that governed other societies. The gods, displeased with the Atlanteans' moral decay, withdrew their favor, and the civilization collapsed in a catastrophic and swift manner. This dramatic end serves as a reminder of the dangers of excessive pride and the fragility of even the most powerful civilizations. While Plato's story of Atlantis is often interpreted as an allegory, it also raises deeper questions about the nature of civilization itself. What makes a society great? How does a civilization rise to power, and what causes it to fall? The story of Atlantis suggests that the key to the longevity of any civilization lies not just in its technological or military prowess, but in its moral and ethical foundation. A civilization that loses sight of its values and virtues is destined for ruin, no matter how advanced it becomes. The moral decline of the Atlanteans is portrayed as both a personal and collective failure. As the leaders and people of Atlantis became more self-serving and corrupt, they lost the wisdom and guidance that had once shaped their society. The collapse of Atlantis is, in many ways, a reflection of the inevitable downfall of any civilization that fails to maintain a balance between ambition and morality. The myth of Atlantis also speaks to the idea of lost knowledge. For centuries, people have wondered if Atlantis was a real civilization, and if so, what happened to the knowledge and wisdom it may have possessed. The idea of a highly advanced society, with technologies and achievements far beyond what we can comprehend today, raises fascinating questions about human potential. Could Atlantis have been home to innovations and discoveries that have been lost to history? The very notion of lost knowledge taps into the human desire to uncover secrets of the past, to recover wisdom that might allow us to build a better future. Some theories about Atlantis suggest that the city was home to a form of advanced technology, perhaps even a type of energy or scientific knowledge that has since been forgotten. Whether or not Atlantis ever existed, the myth underscores our collective desire to understand the potential of human civilization and the possibility that there may have been ancient wisdom that could help us avoid the mistakes of the past. The search for Atlantis, both literal and metaphorical, has been a constant throughout history. In the centuries following Plato's account, many explorers, scholars, and adventurers have sought to locate the lost city, often with varying degrees of success. The search has ranged from theories placing Atlantis in the Mediterranean, particularly near the island of Santorini, to more exotic locations, such as the Caribbean, the Azores, and even Antarctica. Some of these theories are based on historical and geological evidence, while others rely on interpretations of Plato's descriptions that stretch the boundaries of plausibility. The fascination with Atlantis continues to this day, with researchers using cutting-edge technology to explore the depths of the oceans and uncover ancient submerged cities, hoping to find traces of the lost civilization. But the search for Atlantis is not only about finding a physical city. It is also about exploring the ideas and themes that the myth embodies. Atlantis represents the pinnacle of human achievement, a society that achieved greatness through its mastery of technology, governance, and morality. Yet, as the story of Atlantis demonstrates, even the greatest civilizations are subject to the forces of time, nature, and human weakness. The sudden disappearance of Atlantis serves as a reminder that all things, no matter how great, are temporary. No civilization, no matter how powerful, is immune to decline. The Atlantis myth raises important questions about the sustainability of civilizations and the consequences of forgetting the values that allow societies to thrive. The moral lessons of Atlantis continue to resonate with modern audiences. In today's world, where technological advancements and global interconnectivity have created vast new possibilities, the story of Atlantis serves as a warning against overreach. Just as the Atlanteans became consumed by their power and wealth, so too can modern societies become blinded by their own successes. In a world of rapid technological progress, there is a risk that we may lose sight of the ethical implications of our actions. The development of new technologies, such as artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, and nuclear power, presents both incredible opportunities and significant risks. The story of Atlantis challenges us to consider the moral and ethical dimensions of our technological advancements and the potential consequences of neglecting these considerations. One of the central themes of the Atlantis myth is the tension between human ambition and humility. The Atlanteans, at the height of their power, believed that their wealth and technological prowess made them invincible. They saw themselves as gods, exempt from the moral and ethical constraints that govern ordinary people. This arrogance led to their downfall, as the gods withdrew their favor and punished them for their hubris. The lesson of Atlantis is that no civilization is above the natural laws, nor is it exempt from the consequences of its actions. The myth serves as a reminder that human ambition must be tempered with humility and that the pursuit of greatness should not come at the cost of moral integrity. In addition to its moral lessons, the myth of Atlantis also serves as a cautionary tale about the fragility of human societies. The sudden and dramatic fall of Atlantis underscores the idea that civilizations are not as stable or enduring as they might seem. The forces that shape societies are unpredictable, and even the most powerful civilizations can crumble when they fail to adapt to changing circumstances. The destruction of Atlantis is a reminder that all societies are vulnerable and that the things we take for granted, our wealth, our power, our technological achievements, can be lost in an instant. It is a sobering thought, but one that serves to keep us grounded in the face of progress and success. The story of Atlantis has endured for thousands of years because it taps into fundamental truths about the human condition. It speaks to our desires for greatness, our fears of failure, and our struggle to find balance in a world full of contradictions. Atlantis, whether real or imagined, continues to resonate with us because it embodies the tension between human ambition and moral responsibility, the impermanence of human achievement, and the need to learn from the past in order to build a better future. The myth of Atlantis challenges us to consider the limits of our power, to reflect on our values, and to ask ourselves what kind of society we want to create. It reminds us that greatness is not just about technological progress or military might, but about the virtues that guide us toward a better, more just world. As long as humanity continues to search for meaning in the past, Atlantis will remain a powerful symbol of both the heights we can achieve and the depths we must avoid. The myth, whether seen as a historical account, a philosophical allegory, or a warning about the dangers of moral decline, will continue to inspire and challenge us for generations to come. It remains, at its core, a timeless story that reflects the complexities of human civilization and the eternal struggle to balance ambition with responsibility. The myth of Atlantis has captivated generations of thinkers, adventurers, and dreamers, presenting a mystery that has endured for thousands of years. It is a story that blends history, philosophy, and the unknown in a way that has fueled countless theories, searches, and speculations. More than just a tale of a lost city, Atlantis speaks to the human condition, reflecting our fears of mortality, the impermanence of human achievement, and the relentless desire for greatness. It is a legend that continues to resonate with us because it taps into deep, universal questions about civilization, morality, and the limits of human power. What happens when a civilization becomes so powerful that it loses sight of its moral foundations? What are the consequences of unchecked ambition? And how can we learn from the past to avoid repeating the same mistakes? At its core, the story of Atlantis is a cautionary tale. Plato, the ancient Greek philosopher, first introduced the concept of Atlantis in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias. According to Plato, Atlantis was a vast and advanced civilization located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, or the Strait of Gibraltar. It was a land of extraordinary beauty and wealth, with grand cities and impressive technological advancements. The Atlanteans were said to be a powerful people, ruled by kings descended from the god Poseidon, who had granted them great prosperity. Atlantis was a utopian society, its inhabitants living in harmony with nature and governed by a system that valued wisdom, justice, and virtue. The Atlanteans had everything a civilization could desire: wealth, peace, and a connection with the divine. But as time passed, their virtues began to erode. Their power and wealth became the source of their moral decay, and they became arrogant, selfish, and corrupt. They sought to conquer other lands, driven by a desire for more power, and their society became riddled with greed and excess. The gods, angered by the Atlanteans' decline in virtue, decided to punish them. In a single day and night, the island of Atlantis was consumed by a series of devastating natural disasters. Earthquakes, floods, and volcanic eruptions struck the island, sinking it into the sea and erasing it from existence. The once great civilization vanished without a trace, leaving behind only myths and stories. Plato's account of Atlantis is often seen as a philosophical allegory, a reflection on the dangers of unchecked ambition and the consequences of moral decay. The destruction of Atlantis, in this interpretation, serves as a warning to future generations about the fragility of human civilizations and the importance of maintaining moral integrity. While Plato's story of Atlantis is widely recognized as a moral lesson, it has also sparked many debates about the nature of the myth itself. Was Atlantis a real place, a lost city that once existed in some forgotten corner of the earth? Or was it purely a work of fiction, a symbol of Plato's concerns about the moral and political state of his own society? Scholars have long debated this question, with some arguing that Plato's account was based on historical events or oral traditions, while others maintain that Atlantis was a fictional construct created to illustrate philosophical ideas. The idea that Atlantis was a real civilization is supported by various theories, many of which attempt to pinpoint the geographical location of the lost city. One of the most popular theories is that Atlantis was located in the Mediterranean, particularly near the island of Santorini. The eruption of the Thera volcano around 1600 BCE is often cited as a potential source for the Atlantis myth. The eruption caused widespread destruction, and the Minoan civilization, which thrived on the island of Crete at the time, was severely affected. Some researchers suggest that the Minoans' advanced technology and culture, coupled with the devastation of the Thera eruption, could have been the inspiration for Plato's description of the sinking of Atlantis. Another theory places Atlantis in the Caribbean, specifically around the Bahamas. Proponents of this theory point to underwater structures and anomalies found in the region, which they believe could be the remnants of an ancient civilization. The idea of a lost city beneath the ocean is compelling, especially given the fact that the Caribbean is home to a number of ancient cultures, such as the Maya and the Taino, that once flourished in the region. However, the evidence for this theory remains inconclusive, and it remains a subject of much speculation. Other theories place Atlantis in more far-flung locations, such as Antarctica or the Americas. Some proponents of the Antarctic theory argue that the continent was once situated in a warmer climate and could have supported a civilization like Atlantis. According to this theory, the shifting of the Earth's poles over time could have caused the landmass to move from a more temperate region to its current icy location. While this idea is highly speculative and lacks strong scientific backing, it reflects the extent to which people are willing to search for a lost city that could hold the key to humanity's past. Despite the many theories, no definitive evidence has ever been found to support the existence of Atlantis. The search for the lost city continues to captivate the imagination of explorers, archaeologists, and treasure hunters, but it is unlikely that the mystery of Atlantis will ever be fully resolved. However, the enduring appeal of the Atlantis myth is not just about finding a lost city, it is about the deeper questions the myth raises. Whether or not Atlantis was a real place, the story serves as a powerful symbol of human civilization and its fragility. The rise and fall of Atlantis mirrors the cyclical nature of history, where civilizations rise to great heights, only to be brought down by internal corruption, external forces, or a combination of both. One of the most profound lessons of the Atlantis myth is the idea of impermanence. No matter how advanced a civilization becomes, no matter how powerful or wealthy, it is always vulnerable to forces beyond its control. Atlantis, as a symbol of human achievement, serves as a reminder that all things, empire, wealth, power, are temporary. The destruction of Atlantis underscores the idea that civilizations are not immune to decline, and that their eventual fall is inevitable. This concept is reflected in the rise and fall of empires throughout history, from the Roman Empire to the Maya civilization to the ancient Egyptians. In each case, the story of these civilizations echoes the same themes present in the Atlantis myth: the dangers of hubris, the impermanence of power, and the consequences of moral decline. The Atlantis myth also explores the idea of the loss of knowledge. Plato's account suggests that the Atlanteans possessed wisdom and technologies far beyond what the Greeks had achieved at the time. Their downfall, however, led to the loss of this knowledge. The idea of a lost civilization, with advanced technologies and wisdom that have been erased by time, is a recurring theme in human history. The notion that the Atlanteans possessed knowledge that could have helped humanity avoid future mistakes raises important questions about the potential of lost civilizations. What if the Atlanteans had discovered things that we have since forgotten? What if their downfall was not just the result of moral corruption, but the loss of valuable knowledge that could have transformed the course of history? The myth of Atlantis, whether based on historical events or purely fictional, raises deep philosophical and moral questions about the nature of human civilization. It speaks to the aspirations and fears that are inherent in human nature, the desire for greatness, the fear of decline, the hope for wisdom, and the awareness of impermanence. The story of Atlantis continues to inspire exploration, both in the physical sense of searching for a lost city and in the intellectual sense of exploring the moral and philosophical lessons that the myth offers. The search for Atlantis is not just a search for a physical place. It is a search for meaning, for understanding, and for the timeless lessons that can be gleaned from the past. As we reflect on the story of Atlantis, it serves as a reminder that the fate of civilizations is not determined solely by their military or technological prowess, but by their ability to maintain their moral integrity. The downfall of Atlantis is a warning to all societies, past, present, and future, that the pursuit of power and wealth must be tempered with wisdom, humility, and a respect for the natural world. The myth also challenges us to consider the fragility of human achievements and the impermanence of the world we create. Whether or not Atlantis was a real place, the myth of Atlantis continues to serve as a powerful allegory for the rise and fall of civilizations, the dangers of hubris, and the importance of maintaining a balance between ambition and morality. It is a story that transcends time and place, offering timeless lessons for humanity as we continue our journey through the cycles of history. The myth of Atlantis holds a special place in the world of myths and legends, continuing to spark curiosity and debate long after its inception. The allure of a lost city that once existed at the height of human civilization is both captivating and mysterious. While many have sought the physical remains of Atlantis, the story itself delves into profound philosophical questions, moral dilemmas, and reflections on the nature of human society. For centuries, the story of Atlantis has been interpreted in many ways, influencing not only historical discourse but also modern ideas about the cyclical nature of civilizations, the limits of human power, and the eternal battle between virtue and corruption. The legend serves as a timeless reminder of the dangers of arrogance, the fragility of empires, and the consequences of moral decay. At the heart of the Atlantis myth is Plato's account in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, where the legendary island is described as a vast, advanced civilization with grand cities, impressive technological achievements, and a deeply ingrained sense of harmony between man and nature. According to Plato, Atlantis was larger than Libya and Asia combined and was located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, now known as the Strait of Gibraltar. The Atlanteans were a people of extraordinary power, wisdom, and wealth, and their island was a paradise filled with beauty and grandeur. They had a deep connection with their gods, particularly Poseidon, who, according to Plato, bestowed blessings on the island, making it prosperous and flourishing for centuries. The city itself was a marvel, with concentric rings of water and land surrounding a central island, where the magnificent temple of Poseidon stood as a testament to their devotion and achievements. For Plato, Atlantis represented the peak of civilization, a society that embodied the ideals of justice, harmony, and wisdom. However, as time passed, the people of Atlantis began to change. The very power and wealth that had once sustained them began to erode their moral compass. The Atlanteans became consumed with ambition, greed, and a thirst for more power. They sought to extend their empire, conquering other nations and imposing their will on the world. They believed that their strength made them invincible, and they grew arrogant, forgetting the virtues that had once guided their society. They lost their sense of justice and fairness, becoming self-serving and corrupt. As their civilization became increasingly decadent, they lost the favor of the gods, particularly Poseidon, who had once been their patron. The gods, displeased with the Atlanteans' moral decline, decided to punish them. A cataclysmic series of natural disasters struck the island, earthquakes, floods, and volcanic eruptions, destroying Atlantis in a single day and night. The once great civilization sank into the sea, never to be seen again. The sudden and dramatic fall of Atlantis is at the core of the myth's moral lesson. Plato's story serves as a warning about the dangers of excessive pride, hubris, and the corrupting influence of power and wealth. The Atlanteans, at their peak, believed they were beyond reproach, convinced that their civilization could never fall. Their arrogance led them to disregard the moral laws that had once upheld their society, and in doing so, they sealed their own doom. The collapse of Atlantis is a reminder that no matter how powerful or advanced a civilization becomes, it is always vulnerable to its own flaws and weaknesses. The gods' punishment, in the form of a natural disaster, is a divine reckoning for the loss of virtue. It is a powerful allegory for the fragility of human civilization and the inevitability of decline when societies abandon their core values. While Plato's story is often read as a cautionary tale, the concept of Atlantis has had far-reaching implications beyond its original context. Over the centuries, the myth of Atlantis has been reinterpreted in various ways, reflecting the changing concerns and interests of different cultures. Some have seen the story as an allegory for the rise and fall of all civilizations, suggesting that the fall of Atlantis represents the inevitable collapse of any society that loses its moral grounding. Others have proposed that Atlantis was not just a symbol but a real historical place, a civilization that once existed in the distant past, its knowledge and achievements now lost to time. Whether real or fictional, the myth of Atlantis speaks to the human desire to understand the past and to grapple with the forces that shape civilizations. The idea of Atlantis as a real place has led to numerous theories about its location. Since Plato first introduced the myth, countless explorers, scholars, and treasure hunters have sought to uncover the lost city. Some have proposed that Atlantis was located in the Mediterranean, particularly near the island of Santorini. The eruption of the Thera volcano around 1600 BCE is often cited as a potential source for the Atlantis myth. The eruption caused widespread devastation, and some believe it could have been the inspiration for the sinking of Atlantis. The Minoans, who lived on the island of Crete at the time, were an advanced civilization, and their culture, which included impressive architecture and maritime prowess, may have influenced Plato's portrayal of the Atlanteans. The idea that Atlantis was a Minoan colony has been suggested, but there is no definitive evidence linking the Minoans to the lost city. Other theories have placed Atlantis in more distant locations, such as the Caribbean or even Antarctica.
Some researchers have pointed to underwater structures found in the Bahamas, arguing that these anomalies could be remnants of Atlantis. The idea of an ancient civilization existing beneath the waves is an alluring one, and many continue to search for proof of such lost societies. However, most of these theories remain speculative, with no solid evidence to support the existence of Atlantis. The search for the lost city has become an obsession for many, yet despite modern technology and exploration, the mystery of Atlantis remains unsolved. Even without concrete evidence of its physical existence, the myth of Atlantis endures because of the deeper philosophical and moral questions it raises. The story of Atlantis is not merely about a lost city, but about the impermanence of human achievements, the dangers of unchecked ambition, and the consequences of moral decay. The downfall of Atlantis serves as a warning for all civilizations, a reminder that no society, no matter how powerful or advanced, is immune to the forces of decline. The Atlanteans' descent into moral decay is symbolic of the dangers that accompany the accumulation of wealth and power. It is a reminder that the pursuit of greatness must be tempered with humility, justice, and virtue. The Atlantis myth also speaks to the idea of lost knowledge and the potential of ancient civilizations. Throughout history, there has been a fascination with the idea that ancient peoples may have possessed wisdom and technologies that have since been forgotten. The loss of Atlantis, in this view, represents the loss of valuable knowledge that could have benefited humanity. The idea of a once great civilization whose achievements were erased by time and disaster taps into human desire to uncover hidden truths about the past. Could the Atlanteans have known things that we have since forgotten? Could they have had knowledge that would have helped us avoid the mistakes that led to the fall of their civilization? These questions continue to intrigue us, and the myth of Atlantis continues to serve as a symbol of our quest for lost wisdom and understanding. The Atlantis myth is not only a tale of lost grandeur and the dangers of excess, but it is also a story about the cyclical nature of history. Civilizations rise, flourish, and eventually decline, often due to internal corruption and external pressures. The story of Atlantis, with its sudden and catastrophic fall, mirrors the rise and fall of empires throughout history. The Romans, the Greeks, the Egyptians, the Maya, all these civilizations reached the heights of human achievement, only to eventually face collapse. The downfall of Atlantis serves as a metaphor for this cyclical pattern, suggesting that no civilization, no matter how advanced, is immune to the forces that shape history. In modern times, the myth of Atlantis continues to resonate because it speaks to the concerns of contemporary society. In an age of rapid technological advancement, climate change, and geopolitical instability, the story of Atlantis serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked progress and the moral responsibility that comes with power. As we continue to develop new technologies and expand our influence in the world, the lesson of Atlantis remains relevant. Are we, too, at risk of losing our moral grounding in the pursuit of power and wealth? Are we in danger of becoming so focused on our own success that we lose sight of the values that sustain us? The Atlantis myth also raises questions about the relationship between human civilization and the natural world. In Plato's account, the destruction of Atlantis is brought about by divine wrath, a punishment for the moral decay of the people. The gods, angry at the Atlanteans' arrogance, send natural disasters to destroy the island. The sinking of Atlantis can be interpreted as a metaphor for the destruction of the natural world by human activity. The exploitation of resources, the corruption of nature, and the disregard for the environment are all themes that are present in the myth of Atlantis. As we face environmental challenges today, the story of Atlantis serves as a stark reminder of the consequences of environmental degradation and the importance of living in harmony with nature. In conclusion, the myth of Atlantis is a powerful and timeless story that continues to captivate the human imagination. It speaks to the fragility of civilization, the dangers of hubris, and impermanence of human achievements. Whether Atlantis was a real place or a philosophical allegory, the lessons embedded in the myth continue to resonate with us today. The fall of Atlantis serves as a warning for all civilizations, reminding us that the pursuit of power and wealth must be tempered with moral integrity, humility, and respect for the natural world. The search for Atlantis, whether literal or metaphorical, is a search for meaning, wisdom, and understanding. It is a reflection on the cyclical nature of history, the rise and fall of civilizations, and the timeless human quest for the story of Atlantis has long captured the imagination of people all over the world. It is a tale of wonder, power, and ultimate destruction, one that raises questions about the fragility of civilization, the limits of human ambition, and the consequences of moral decay. The myth is often seen as a timeless warning, a reflection of the dangers that accompany human greatness and the inevitable decline that comes with it. While the existence of Atlantis as a physical place has been the subject of intense speculation, the deeper philosophical and moral themes that the story explores continue to resonate with people across cultures and centuries. The tale of Atlantis, as told by Plato in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, paint a picture of a civilization that was once the pinnacle of human achievement. According to Plato, Atlantis was a vast island beyond the Pillars of Hercules, the Strait of Gibraltar, and was larger than both Libya and Asia combined. The Atlanteans were a prosperous and highly advanced people who possessed great wealth, military power, and technological prowess. Their island city was an architectural marvel, built with concentric rings of water and land, with a magnificent temple dedicated to Poseidon, the god of the sea. The civilization was not only technologically advanced, but also spiritually connected to their gods, living in a state of harmony with the natural world and each other. However, as the centuries passed, the people of Atlantis began to lose sight of the virtues that had made their society great. Their power and wealth led to arrogance, greed, and a desire to conquer other nations. The once virtuous Atlanteans became consumed by their ambition, abandoning the moral principles that had guided them. Their society became corrupted, and they lost their connection to the divine. The gods, particularly Poseidon, grew angry at their moral decline and decided to punish them. The destruction of Atlantis was swift and catastrophic. In a single day and night, the island was swallowed by the sea, sinking into the depths and disappearing without a trace. The once great civilization was lost forever. The fall of Atlantis serves as a powerful allegory about the dangers of unchecked ambition, moral decay, and the inevitable consequences of losing sight of virtue. Plato's story of Atlantis is not just about a lost city. It is about the inevitable decline of all civilizations that become consumed by greed, power, and the pursuit of wealth. The story serves as a reminder that no matter how advanced or powerful a civilization becomes, it is always vulnerable to the forces of nature, the consequences of moral corruption, and the eventual erosion of its values. The sudden and dramatic destruction of Atlantis underscores the idea that even the most prosperous and technologically advanced societies are not immune to collapse. The moral lesson embedded in the Atlantis myth is one that has been echoed throughout history. Many civilizations have risen to great heights, only to fall into decline due to internal corruption, external pressures, or a combination of both. The Roman Empire, for example, reached the height of its power before succumbing to political instability, economic collapse, and military defeat. Similarly, the Maya civilization, which once flourished in Central America, declined due to environmental factors, warfare, and social upheaval. The fall of Atlantis can be seen as a metaphor for the rise and fall of all civilizations, a reminder that no society, no matter how great, is immune to decline. The Atlantis myth speaks to the cyclical nature of history, where civilizations rise, flourish, and eventually collapse. One of the central themes of the Atlantis myth is the idea of impermanence. Plato's story of Atlantis emphasizes the fragility of human civilization and the transient nature of power and wealth. The Atlanteans, at their peak, believed that their civilization was eternal and that their wealth and power would last forever. Their hubris and arrogance blinded them to reality that all things, no matter how great, are temporary. The sudden collapse of Atlantis serves as a stark reminder that no civilization is immune to the forces of time, nature, and human error. The story of Atlantis invites us to reflect on the impermanence of our own achievements and to consider the fleeting nature of power, wealth, and success. While the Atlantis myth is often seen as a cautionary tale, it also raises important questions about the role of knowledge and wisdom in the survival of civilizations. The Atlanteans were a people of great technological and architectural achievement, and their society was marked by an advanced understanding of science, engineering, and governance. However, despite their remarkable achievements, they ultimately fell victim to their own moral failings. The story of Atlantis suggests that the greatest threat to a civilization is not necessarily its lack of knowledge or technological advancement, but its loss of moral and ethical integrity. The fall of Atlantis is a reminder that knowledge alone is not enough to sustain a civilization. Wisdom, virtue, and humility are equally essential for the survival of society. The idea that the downfall of Atlantis was caused by the moral corruption of its people is a theme that has been explored by many philosophers and thinkers throughout history. The concept of moral decay leading to societal collapse is not unique to the Atlantis myth. It appears in many different cultures and traditions. For example, the decline of the Roman Empire has often been attributed to moral decay and the loss of civic virtue. Similarly, the fall of other great civilizations, such as the ancient Egyptians and the Chinese dynasties, has been linked to the erosion of values such as justice, integrity, and responsibility. In this sense, the Atlantis myth serves as a reflection of universal concerns about the moral foundations of society and the consequences of moral decline. The loss of Atlantis, however, is not just a warning about moral decay. It is also a story about the impermanence of human power. The sudden and catastrophic nature of Atlantis' destruction highlights the unpredictability of history and the fragility of even the most powerful civilizations. No matter how advanced or wealthy a society may become, it is always vulnerable to forces beyond its control, whether those forces are natural disasters, invasions, or internal strife. The Atlantis myth underscores the idea that power is fleeting and that even the mightiest of civilizations can be brought down by circumstances outside of their control. This theme of vulnerability is particularly relevant in today's world, where the global balance of power is constantly shifting and societies are increasingly faced with challenges such as climate change, geopolitical instability, and technological disruption. The fall of Atlantis also raises questions about the relationship between humanity and the natural world. In Plato's account, the destruction of Atlantis is brought about by divine wrath, with the gods punishing the Atlanteans for their moral failings. The gods, particularly Poseidon, withdraw their favor from the island and send a series of natural disasters to destroy it. The suddenness and intensity of the disaster reflect the idea that human civilizations are subject to the forces of nature and that the natural world is a powerful and unpredictable force. The story of Atlantis serves as a reminder that humans are not masters of the earth, but rather a part of a larger, more complex system that is beyond our control. The natural disasters that destroyed Atlantis can be seen as a metaphor for the ways in which human societies are vulnerable to the forces of nature, whether through earthquakes, floods, hurricanes, or other catastrophes. In modern times, the story of Atlantis continues to resonate with people because it speaks to the challenges and uncertainties of the contemporary world. In an age of rapid technological advancement and global interconnectedness, the Atlantis myth serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of overreach and the consequences of losing sight of our moral responsibilities. As human civilization continues to expand its influence over the natural world, we are faced with new challenges and ethical dilemmas. The development of artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, and other advanced technologies raises important questions about the limits of human power and the ethical implications of our actions. The fall of Atlantis serves as a reminder that even the most advanced technologies and the most powerful societies are vulnerable to moral failure and natural disaster. The story of Atlantis also speaks to the enduring human desire to understand the past and uncover the lost knowledge of ancient civilizations. The idea that Atlantis may have possessed wisdom and technologies far beyond what we have today is a compelling one, and it continues to inspire people to search for the lost city. Many theories have been proposed about the location of Atlantis, with some suggesting that it was located in the Mediterranean, the Caribbean, or even Antarctica. While these theories remain speculative, they reflect a human fascination with lost civilizations and the belief that ancient knowledge may hold the key to solving the problems of the present. The search for Atlantis is not just about finding a physical place. It is about uncovering the wisdom and knowledge that could help humanity avoid the mistakes of the past and build a better future. The myth of Atlantis is also a story about the search for meaning and the quest for understanding. As a symbol, Atlantis represents the potential of human civilization, the idea that we can build great societies, achieve remarkable technological advancements, and live in harmony with nature. But it is also a symbol of the fragility of these achievements, the inevitable decline that follows the rise of great civilizations, and the lessons that can be learned from the past. Whether Atlantis was a real place or a fictional construct, its story continues to offer profound insights into the nature of human civilization and the forces that shape our world. It serves as both a warning and a hope, warning us of the dangers of moral decline and unchecked ambition, while also reminding us of the potential for greatness that exists within us all. In the end, the myth of Atlantis is a timeless reflection on the rise and fall of civilizations, the impermanence of power, and the need for wisdom and virtue in the face of ambition. It challenges us to consider the consequences of our actions, to reflect on the values that guide us, and to recognize that our achievements, no matter how great, are always vulnerable to the forces of nature, time, and human error. The fall of Atlantis may be a tragic loss, but also serves as a valuable lesson, a reminder that the greatest civilizations are those that,